The year is 1945. The biggest war in the human history is finally over. The United States and the Soviet Union emerge as the only superpowers left standing. Over the next 15 years, they compete to build the fastest rockets and the deadliest bombs. By 1962, the United States has a significant advantage. The Americans have secretly placed nuclear missiles in Turkey. These weapons are right on the Soviet border, capable of striking Moscow in minutes. The Soviet leadership feels concerned. They need to even the score. To restore the balance of power, the Soviets make a desperate move. They decide to place their own missiles in America's backyard, in the island of Cuba. To guard this secret deployment, the Russian Navy dispatches a fleet of 4 submarines across the Atlantic. One of these 4 vessels is the B-59. But there is a major flaw in their plan. B-59 is designed for the freezing waters of the Arctic. It is not built for the warm tropical waters of the Caribbean. As the submarine gets closer to the Cuba, the cooling system completely fails. The temperature inside the vessel rises to over 50 degrees centigrade. The air turns foul and the sailors begin to faint from the oppressive heat. They are trapped deep underwater in sweltering metal shell. They are on their own. They have lost all radio contact with Moscow. While B-59 hides in the depths, the situation above explodes. The Americans discover the Soviet missiles in Cuba. President Kennedy orders a massive blockade, sending ships and planes to completely surround the island. On October 27th, the American Navy detects B-59. The Americans start dropping signaling charges to force the boat up. These are small explosions, loud enough to be heard but too weak to destroy the submarine. The Americans know it's just a warning, but inside the B-59, the crew thinks they are under attack. The blasts are deafening. The entire submarine shudders and the main power fails. The heat is stifling and the air is becoming toxic with carbon dioxide. Totally cut off from Moscow, they are left guessing. Is this just a standoff or has the World War III already begun? Captain Valentin Savitsky is convinced that the end has come. Exhausted, desperate, and believing they are under direct attack, he finally snaps. He fears that Russia itself might already be gone. In a panic, he screams, "We are gonna blast them now. We will die, but we will sink them all." Savitsky orders the crew to prepare the special weapon. The Americans on the surface have no idea, but B-59 is armed with a nuclear torpedo, carrying a 10-kiloton yield, roughly the same power as the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. If that torpedo leaves the tube, it will vaporize the American fleet. The United States will almost certainly retaliate, unleashing their own nuclear arsenal. Within hours, major cities across Russia, America, and Europe would be wiped off the map. The fate of the entire world now hangs on a single rule. Launching the nuclear torpedo requires unanimous agreement from the 3 highest-ranking officers on the board. The captain shouts yes. The political officer shouts yes. They are ready to turn the keys. But the 3rd officer, Vasili Arkhipov, says no. Arkhipov is the chief of staff of the brigade, the senior-most officer on the board. While the captain is furious and panicking, Arkhipov stays calm. He insists that the Americans are just dropping signaling charges to force them to the surface, not trying to kill them. He looks the captain in the eye and tells him that firing this weapon would be a mistake that destroys the world. He refuses to give his consent. A heated argument breaks out in the chaotic control room. The captain is desperate to fire, but Arkhipov stands his ground. Without his vote, the launch cannot happen. Finally, Arkhipov talks the captain down. Instead of firing the nuclear weapon, they give the order to blow the ballast tanks. B-59 rises to the surface. When they breach the water, they are surrounded by the American ships. But there is no shooting. The Americans just want them to identify themselves. The war has not started. If Arkhipov had said yes, the torpedo would have hit the fleet. The US would have instantly fired back. Millions, perhaps billions, would have died in the fire and radiation. The civilization we know today would have ended right there in 1962. But because one man refused to turn a key, the missiles stayed in their tubes. The submarine turns around and begins the slow journey back to Russia. When they arrive home, there is no hero welcome. The Soviet leadership is embarrassed that the submarine was forced to the surface, and the mission is written off as a failure. The story of B-59 is buried in secret files. Vasili Arkhipov continues his service in the Navy, eventually rising to Vice Admiral. He retires quietly and passes away in 1998. It was not until 2002, 4 years after his death, the details are finally revealed to the public. Only then does the world learn how close we came to extinction. Vasili Arkhipov is now known as the man who saved the world, the officer whose single vote prevented a nuclear catastrophe.